welcome again everybody. We will now follow up where we left off last time. So with theme development, we have spoken about shape tracing briefly and shapes and how the layout is built up inside Orchard. So we will follow up with that. First, of course, we should download the source, the latest source from last time, from under source.lombiq.com. It's under our Dojo Course Orchard demo repository. So just download it somewhere. So we will follow up with shapes and theme development. We will write our first shape templates now. So pieces of HTML that build up the Orchard layout system. We will use shape overrides. That means we will write shape templates that override some of the built-in display, built-in templates, the built-in HTML markup of some pieces of Orchard, because this is how theme development should be done. Okay, so here's our solution. So let's open it just as every time. Yeah, you got it? Okay, good. Now, last time we tried shape tracing. So shape tracing is really a useful tool for discovering Orchard shapes. So we will continue to use that. So let's start the site with a Ctrl F5. By the way, as you may know, because this is not just something related to Orchard, but Ctrl F5 starts the site or starts the application without debugging. F5 will start with debugging. Now, unless you want to debug for some reason startup bugs or startup issues, never start Orchard with debugging. It's much slower. And if you want to run the debugger, you could just attach it after the application is started up. So let's wait for Orchard to start up. So the site is starting again through IS Express. So there is a little web server in the background that starts up now. There is some auto configuration that happens now, or happens the first time rather, when we run an Orchard solution from here. So you don't have to bother with anything in the background. It just configures itself. So Orchard is here. Now, as you can remember, in our solution we have our theme project. So if we collapse everything with this collapse all button, that's especially useful for Orchard, for the Orchard solution. We can find our Dojo Course theme here, as we have generated last time. So we will work in this project now. But what do we want to do? Now it's a very common scenario that you want to switch out pieces of markup inside the website. So we have the default, what we can see here, for example with Orchard. But when you develop your own site, even for yourself or for a client, probably the most useful thing you want to try is to change how the layout is built up, because you may want I don't know, more columns, a different structure, a different layout altogether. So let's see how to swap pieces of Orchard. And this is where the notion of shapes come into play, or into the game, as we have seen earlier. Now there is this hierarchical structure of shapes that build up a tree in the background. So there is really an object tree where all the objects are dynamic objects, and these are the shapes. These contain every data that are needed for our templates to be rendered, for our layout to be built. So also these shapes are thus kind of view models in the background, i.e. they are models, so data containers for the views, the templates. Now, so we have a tree of shapes, so a tree of dynamic objects in the background, but how do we get the layout, so the HTML in the end? That's because Orchard takes the shapes and finds corresponding templates for them. That's a later step. So this also means that shapes are not directly tied to templates. They are loosely coupled. That also means that we can just swap out these templates, and that's what we will do now. From this tree, we can see the first level here when opening up shape tracing. So in our instance, it's enabled because we enabled it last time, but it's not enabled when you install Orchard, since it's a developer tool, so you only need it on your developer machine. And here we see the first level of the tree, or rather the second level. When the first is the root, we can see the second level of this tree. Because above this there would be the document shape. So that's the root, that's around everything. And inside the document shape we have different shapes. We have this header zone, that's also a shape. Now this contains everything that's inside this blue box here. But this also contains some other shapes, particularly here just branding. We will start with this because that's an easy example. Now branding here is a shape, of course. You can see it's the shape name is branding, but the shape is just the object in the background. We should have a CS.html file, so a razor template in the system that will define how to render the shape, and that's here. So active template tells us that there is a template under this path called branding.cs.html that contains the razor HTML that renders this. If we click this, we also can see what it's containing. As you can see, it's just plain HTML with razor. So this is the razor syntax here. If you haven't known it already, this is the templating language commonly used in ASP.NET MVC, and that also in Orchard. By the way, the view engines, so we are using the razor view engine here. The view engines are also swappable, or even you could use multiple view engines at the same time inside the same Orchard instance. So if for some reason you prefer another view engine, you can plug it in. Let's not bother with anything else here, and let's override this shape. So as we can see, or as we have seen, the active template is this branding here. But what should we do if we want to change how this branding is built up? We want to change the HTML for some reason. Now we could go there and open up this template and modify it. But this would be bad, because then we would modify something that's bundled inside Orchard. We would modify Orchard itself. And it's bad because with upgrades, this modification should be then reapplied all the time, and it would be very messy. So what Orchard provides us is are overrides. Now how overrides work is that you put another template into your theme, and with that template you can override the original template. How this works is that there are different alternates. If you open up this alternate menu or whatever here, in shape tracing you can see the different alternates available for this shape template, currently only one. So what alternates mean that you have different ways to override this shape template. Currently there is just only one, that you should place a CS.html with the same CS.html file with the very same name into your own theme. So we will do that, but In a few minutes we will see more complicated examples. We could also just click create here, and this will create our template if everything is alright. So I just clicked it and something happened. So let's go back to our solution and see whether the template is there. Of course it's not yet in our project. It should be on the disk, so let's add it. So right click, add existing item on views, because this is a view. The templates are under views. And indeed we have it here as branding. So if you open up this file, we will get to the Razor editor, and we can modify this file. So let's just do a quick editing and write here that, right here before the site name, because this here, as it's apparent, although we don't know yet what work context is and current site is, this is the site name. So let's write something before it. Let it be site name, column, and let's save it. And let's just not save this file with Ctrl+S, but you should hit save all, so Ctrl+Shift+S, because when we added this branding.cs HTML, we added it to the project. So our project file is modified too. Now, Orchard can only pick up such changes, if the files are added to the project files. So we have to save the project file itself as well. So let's go back to the site and reload the page. We should see some change. If not, then I have no idea why it isn't working. So I excuse myself in advance. But it works. Wow, we have done something. Basically now you know everything about team development. There are a few steps remaining, but basically this was the core. Now let's make this a little bit better. There is something in Orchard called T-strings, and as the name implies, this has to do something with T's. And how it works is that you open a Razor block, so you open Razor blocks with an @ sign, and you call this T method or delegate leader, and this accepts a text argument. Okay, so what the heck is this T? The T is well, probably from translation. This has to do with localization. Orchard has a very lightweight approach to localization. As a developer, you basically almost only need to know about T-strings, and you only have to keep in mind to use T-strings. Because what are T-strings? If we convert this site name string I've written here into a T-string, the result is like this. Oops, I need to end the string as well. So this is a T-string. If I go there and reload the site, I see the very same title. Now the reason is that these T-strings, basically these T-strings, the strings in these T calls run through the localization engine. So what this does is that you could have a localization package for Hungarian, for example, in the system. These localization packages are just specially formatted text files, so nothing special, nothing extraordinary. And in that text file, you could have a mapping for this site name string to Hungarian. Now, if you have that localization package installed and the culture is set up as Hungarian, not site name would be shown, but something in Hungarian. Now, we don't deal with localization inside modules in terms that we don't write localized strings directly. We just run every string through this T. So very convenient. You have to just remember this to use in your views, in your templates, and it will work. So to keep this in mind, and pretty much you should never directly write strings into your template that are also displayed to the user without using these strings. So this is an important lesson to keep in mind. And now that we have done that, we should probably seek some bigger challenge, and for this we will override something more complicated. So I've talked about shapes in the beginning, that those are view models, that those shapes contain every data, or rather should contain every data that is needed by the templates. That also means that this shape around branding, this branding shape, should contain every data that's needed by branding.cshtml. Now the thing is that there is no such data. Branding.cshtml, the branding shape template, it's not necessarily a CSHTML if there are other view engines involved. The shape template doesn't need any data fed to it directly, because it just accesses the site name through a kind of a global object, through this work context. We will see what this work context is when we start to develop modules. But not every shape template is like this. Other shape templates indeed need something not global. For example, the shape template for titles. So let's see what those are. Let's fire up our shape tracing again, and let's look into other shapes. So as you can see, if I hover with the mouse, you get information about all kinds of blocks in the layout. And here in our list, in this page projection list, we also have some shapes. So I just click on cat. Now, what is cat? If you can remember, these here are titles. So cat summary page are titles. And indeed, it's rendered, or it corresponds, this cat, to a parts title summary shape. So there is a shape called parts underscore title underscore summary in the system. We will now look into that and override that, because we may want to alter how titles are displayed. And back to the tree of shapes idea I've described before, as you can see, now we are a bit deeper. So we are inside the content zone. That's also a shape. There is a content shape inside. There are various shapes above it. So there is another title shape, as you can see. It's not summary, but it's just a standard parts title shape. In this content shape, there is a list shape, and in this list shape, content shapes are stored again. And in that content shape, there is a title summary shape. So really, these shapes are encapsulated into each other. They build up kind of a tree structure. And alternates will be a bit more interesting now, because we have this summary here. If I click Active Template, we will see what the template looks like, the original template. Oops. You can see that it's probably a bit more complicated, and it uses something, the model. This is the view model. This is the shapes. This is the data, the external data that the shape contains. In this case, there is only one string contained in that. That's actually fed by the developer to this shape, and it's the title. So now we have this dynamic object here that contains the title, and this is the point, that we can add the data to those shapes as developers externally. We will see this when we develop modules, and in the templates we can get those data back and use them, because these are necessary for our views. So we will override this, and this time we won't use a simple alternate, but a bit more complicated one. So now we have three alternates. Actually, with these alternates, now are probably not probably make sense, because with the branding we only had one alternate. That means we only had one way to override that shape template. With title we have three, and by the way, as pretty much everything in Orchard, this is also extensible. Now we have three alternates. That means that we could override this title template in different manners. The first one, this here, is a very generic override. If we would use that, so if we would place a parts.title.summary.cshtml into our theme, it will override every title. On the contrary, we have another alternate that has this -24 included. Now this -24 is an ID. This is the ID of this content item here. So if you use this override, so if you use the second override, you can override the title of just this content item. So it's very specific. And the third override is in between. As you can see, it includes -page. Now this means that if you would use this override, it would override the template for every pages, but not for other content items, not for content items of other content types. So for example, this wouldn't override the title for this list here, because this list here is a projection. So if I click on the title here, it's not the same shape because it's not a summary title, but you will get the point. If I take a look at the alternates here, you can see that again we have a very generic alternate. We have an alternate aimed at just this content item, and we also have a third alternate, but this time aimed for projection page. Because this is a projection, the content type is called projection page. So if I would use this alternate, the third one, it would override the title for every projection pages, but not for pages. So there is also a nice overview of alternates in the documentation. If we go to the Orchard documentation under docs.orchardproject.net, there is, if you search for alternates, there is a topic under creating themes called alternates. This describes how these alternates work very well. There are many examples of built-in alternates that you could use. There are naming conventions, so you just have to create files with specific names, and they will override as expected. So that's about alternates theoretically. So let's create a title summary alternate now. I will go into the alternates. So we are at cat again, and I will create an alternate for all pages. So just click on create at the last alternate. And after the page is reloaded, we will be able to add our shape template to our solution. And it's done. So let's go back to our solution and at views, let's add an existing item, this parts title summary page. So it was created as expected. This is the title shape template. And as I mentioned, there is this model.title. So if we check this just quickly with IntelliSense, if you start typing model, you will see that this model, this reference called model contains a dynamic object. So if I start typing something under it, no IntelliSense, because it's a dynamic object. We don't know what's inside. Now, this is something interesting, and this could be very useful. So what this means that this model is really something dynamic. As I mentioned earlier, you could use this model inside a shape to just add data to the shape. And it's useful because you don't have to to create classes beforehand. You just add data to this object. It's probably it's similar to a hash map, where you can just add items to it with a key. You can just say model dot whatever. So you could also try. So model dot dynamic test, and we could add some data to it, like this is a dynamic test, and this will work. But let's see, of course. I will also output it, for example, here. So output is again with this razor at syntax. So model dot dynamic test. And if I save this and also save the project file again, when we reload the page, we should see this string, a string before every title. Now, of course, there's not much use to add to the model object from inside the shape template. We also don't use this because why shouldn't you use just local variables? But pretty much this is how it works from the outside too. So after a reload, you can see that we have this is a dynamic test at every title. And also we can see how the override worked. So this projection here, this list here, only contains pages. And indeed, before every title we have this string. But here we have the projection title, there we don't have the string. And to the right hand side we have this projection widget where again pages are listed. So again we have this string added here. So we have successfully changed the layout. Now we could also use the what's built in and go back here. I will leave it here to not forget the idea. But we could also use the title here. So that title from model.title is fed to our shape template. It comes from the outside somehow. So we can use it. Apparently this is the only thing our shape template should know about, because there are no other object inside model. So we could just go here and I don't know, we could output title again inside a span, for example, just as a practice. We could use this title, local variable. And after a reload, we can't see it. Probably it's some CSS. Oh, there are many. This is amusing. Oops. There is every time something not working for some reason. That's interesting why this isn't working. Is it working for somebody? Actually, it's not outputting something. Probably it's something to do with this element being hidden. So let's try into the H1 now. Still nothing happens. What the heck? Oh, I have an idea. Okay. So as you can see, this is some learning by doing. What was the issue here? The issue here is that I haven't seen the changes for some reason. I reloaded the page, but I haven't seen the changes. But now I can see the changes because I've hit Ctrl F5 in the browser, so that's a reload with fetching the latest version from the server. And that's something important to know, and it's good that we now stumbled upon this. And this something is output caching. With 1.7 in Orchard there is a module bundled with Orchard, and it's called output caching. And as the name implies, it caches the output. So what it does, that it caches in memory the whole HTML of the site. And if there is a cached version, it returns it. Now, why is this important? This is useful because if your site has a big load, it will get many hits, and probably the content of the site just changes every few minutes, or maybe just once a day. So there is no real point to just regenerate the whole site every time someone accesses it. It's just easier to get it from the cache. It will return instantly. Users will see page load times in the magnitude of probably tens or at maximum hundreds of milliseconds. So that's quite fast. And this is now not just built in, but also enabled by default. However, this has issues if your content changes. Particularly, it works well with content items. So if you change a content item on a page, the output cache module detects this change, and it will evict the cache. The cache will be thrown out. What I have done now, I have changed the file. Now the output cache module can't possibly detect this. Indeed, it hasn't. So the cache got out of date. Now, one further thing to note is that I'm now logged out. Sorry, I'm logged out. So for logged in users, there's no output caching. The reason behind that is that for logged in your users are logged in because most possibly you want to show them something just specific to them. That's why they should be logged in. Now, if you want to show something specific to a user, there is no point in output caching. And also there would be a danger of accidentally showing other users data from different users. So there is no output caching for logged in users. But now that we have stumbled upon it, let's log in and see its configuration. And our beloved admin password combo is handy here again. In the meanwhile, while it loads, I will just go here and remove this very ugly thing from our page template. Feel free to leave it there if you like it. So let's go to the dashboard. And under settings, you see cache. So that's output cache. You can see you can set the cache duration. So that's the time a cache entry will remain in the cache, and after that, it will be thrown out. Well, at least with the latest source. It's a bit different with this current version, but generally it will be thrown out. This max age is something different. This is the maximum age header sent to the browser by the server. So this means that if you have 300 here, and I don't know, 400 here, this means that although your cached sites will be regenerated after 300 seconds, the browser, a specific browser, won't request a new version until 400 seconds are gone. So these are interesting options to go through if you are dealing with a high, with a performance, with a site that has big traffic. And even if you just have a simple blog, it's useful to go through these options to quickly configure caching, because your site will just be much faster. And if you are paying for the computation resources used, if you are using some cloud services, you will get your hosting cheaper. So let's go back to theme development. So basically now we know how to change the layout, how to change the HTML of an object site. You just have to override shapes. You can select which how fine-grained this override should be, but this could be pretty fine-grained to the content item level. We have seen shape tracing. One first thing we haven't seen yet is how to use static resources, namely scripts and CSS files. Because if you are writing your own theme, of course, what you will want to use definitely is some CSS. So let's add some CSS to our theme. After the code generation, we also have two folders here, one for JavaScript files, or rather general static script files, and one for style sheets. So let's just go to styles and add the style sheet. Add new item. Oh, actually there was a style sheet shortcut. So add style sheet. And let's call it I don't know, Dojo Course styles.css. And let's write something here. Yeah, for body, let's have a background color, just so we can see what happens. Background color. Oops, not background color. Yeah, and let it be, I don't know, yellow. It won't be nice, but we will see it. Okay, we have this CSS file here. We have our rule written, but these CSS files should somehow be added to our layout, so it should be included in the HTML. Now we have different options for this. The first option is to use an existing override here. So we could just go to branding and include it from here. Now how a script and style inclusion works inside Orchard is as following. You should be in a razor block. So this is a razor block with add and the opening parentheses. And in this razor block you could write style dot and then either include or require. Require is something else. Require is to include resources that are defined in a so-called resource manifest, and they have names. In themes, you may not want to use that because for simple themes that's an overkill. So what we'll use now is just include. For include, you just have to specify a path, and this time our path is Dojo Course styles.css. That's it. Now, since our branding.cs HTML is shown on every page on the site, this style sheet will be included on every pages. So if we reload the site, we will see what happens. And since the CS Pro files or the project file changed, there is some time for recompilation. Wow, it's definitely ugly, but at least we can see that it has changed. And although if I go to this page, to this welcome to Orchard, for example, it's still yellow. If I go to this other page, it's still yellow, and really this means that our CSS file is included on every pages. Yeah, by the way, themes are for the front end. So we won't write an admin theme now. all the themes, all what we do inside themes is just for the front end, never for the admin side. You could also write admin themes, but it's a bit more complicated. We won't cover that. Okay, but what would happen if I would include this style sheet not here, but in title, in the title shape template? So let's remove it from here and add it to the title. Again, we should be in a razor block, so that's inside this razor block here. I will change the background from yellow to light green, so I can keep my eyesight. And now if I reload this page, our background should be white, but it's not. And the reason that it's not is... oh, okay. The reason why it's still green, that we have on this widget here on the right hand side, title summary is displayed. So this widget displays the items with the title summary shape template. So again, on every side we have this beautiful background, and we should have it even on the home page. But I guess it's not because of some CSS rules. But and it's also not included here. Oh, it's included. So it's still included, just the body was overridden by the site CSS. But if this projection widget wouldn't be displayed here, our CSS file wouldn't be included in the site. Now, what else could we do to include CSS files? Now, if you want to include some CSS files globally, probably the branding is not the best place to do. Well, it would work most of the time, but also the branding could be hidden on some pages, and it's also a bit messy. So let's find another way to do that, and that would be the layout shape. If we go to our The Theme Machine theme, we will see a layout shape here. It's layout.cshtml. So as you may remember, in our theme.txt, we declared that our base theme is the theme machine. So if Orchard can't find something in our theme, it will load it from the base theme, this time the theme machine. And that's the case with layout, because layout is now loaded from the theme machine, from our base theme, and it's a quite complicated and a very huge file. We have to remember two things. One thing is that this layout defines really the higher level structure of a page. So you can see there are headers, many containers. So this is really the high level structure. It's perfectly fine to use the built-in one because it contains pretty much everything you may need in an average site. But the one in the theme machine also includes two static resources, a font and a style sheet. So we may want to change that, and we may want to instruct Orchard to include our Dojo Course styles.css on every page. And we will employ the same technique as in the theme machine, and we will include those files from layout.cshtml. So again, we have to override a shape template. There is this layout shape template in the theme machine, but we should override it in our own theme. So what we will do is very simple. We will copy paste it here, and I'll make sure to also save the project file. So now we have our own layout here. And after site.css include, we could write our Dojo Course include. So I will remove it from the title shape template and add it to the layout.cshtml. Now this means that first this font will be included, then the size.css from the theme machine. Then finally our CSS file. So let's reload the page and see what happens. Hopefully our site will be a nice light green. And it's loading because of the recompilation, and indeed, it's a nice green. But if you take a look at the source to see what which CSS files are included, you can conclude something. Here are our static resources in the head. As you can see, we have some CSS files. These are all related to shape tracing. Then we have this font inclusion, then the site.css from the theme machine, then finally our CSS file. And by the way, there's also the search CSS file related to the search box we have there. Now the moral is that unless you include a style sheet from somewhere buried in the site, in the layout, so this search CSS is included from here. It's included from this shape. So unless you do that, your CSS, the order of the CSS files will be always so that your theme CSS file will be the last. Or if you have multiple CSS files, those will be the last. That means that you can override pretty much any styling from your theme. Also, make a note here that we have scripts here. You could include scripts in the same way, by the way. We won't try it because it's simple. You could just write script.include and write some pass again. You just have to put your scripts into the scripts folder in the theme. But if you include a script, I will include a not existing script here, you have an option to select it to be displayed at the foot or at the head. Now, what's the difference? If I choose that head here, that would mean that the script is displayed here, just below the CSS files. If I would choose add foot here, like this, that would mean that the script would be displayed in the footer area of the HTML page. So below everything, we're probably a bit to the top. There is many garbage now here because of shape tracing. So of course, if you have shape tracing disabled, your HTML will be much cleaner. And here we have some scripts. There is a lot of shape tracing related stuff below that too, but this is the location of the foot scripts. So it's below the content area. That's the moral. Now, what is the difference, or why is it good to use either one? If you put scripts into the head, they will be definitely run before the user sees anything. Or rather, with head scripts, you can do everything that you may want to do before the user sees anything. While with foot scripts, your content will be loaded first, and then the scripts start loading and executing also. The difference is, or the difference matters depending on your application. If you want your application, your Orchard application to be content heavy, so you want to present content, it's better to put your scripts to the foot, because your users may want to see the content as fast as possible. So if you put your scripts in the foot, your content will be loaded first, then the scripts, so the users will be able to see the content quicker, and that's a good thing. I will just remove this demo code, and one final note. Well, no, actually we covered pretty much everything. That's about theme development. It's also quite well documented in the Orchard documentation. So if you have doubts, take a look at it. We will soon follow with module development, and we will also see that module development extends what we have seen here. We will see similar things. Also, you can employ many techniques that we will use when developing modules in themes. Well, themes almost never should contain code, by the way, so we don't have C# here. But if you absolutely need, you could also write C# in your theme in the same way as with modules, because themes are quite similar to modules. Themes are also extensions, and they are also compiled if they have their own CS project file. So thank you for your attention. We will now have a break, and we will follow up with module development. Alright everybody, very exciting, because now we will start with module development. We are developers, so of course developing something is what we do and what we like. So theming is, yeah, it's more like front-end stuff and styling, but now we will go into the C# kind of development. So let's open up our web project, the web projects folder, because we will run the code generation tool again, just as we have done with for our theme before. So orchard.web, and inside the binaries we find orchard.exe. So we will use that to generate our modules code. By the way, what these code generation tools do is nothing really special. They create project files and some very basic files inside them. And so you could just create module or theme projects by hand, but yeah, there's no point in it when you have these code generation tools. Okay, so we have CodeGen enabled, so we just have to do CodeGen module now, and before we had CodeGen theme. I make this up pretty bigger. Yeah, that's gonna do it. And CodeGen module. Dojo Course, the theme was our theme, so if we have a lot of imagination, we could call our module Dojo Course.module. Of course, if you are developing your modules, you should choose some meaningful name. Okay, so our module should be generated. If we take a look at the folders, we are again under orchard.web, and inside modules, indeed, here is our module. It's here. We have a project file, blah blah blah. So let's go to Visual Studio and add it to our solution. Now, we have talked about, probably briefly, about solution folders before. Since there are many projects inside the Visual Studio solution, there are many solution folders too that contain these project files. But don't be afraid to roll out your own. So here we have modules, but there are a lot of modules. So these are all the built-in modules inside Orchard. Probably we don't want to mix our module with them, especially if we have more than one modules. So let's just create another folder here. So this logical structuring inside the solution doesn't matter for Orchard. So right-click, add and new solution folder. Let's call it Dojo Modules. You could call it anything, of course. And let's right-click on this Dojo Modules folder, add existing project, and let's browse to our newly created module. Here it is, and let's select the CS project file. Now, what we will do, by the way, now, and sorry again, I'm hitting Ctrl-Shift-S to save the solution file now. What we'll do now is that we'll basically follow the path that the training demo module gives us. Now, what is the training demo module? Because you should definitely know about that. Training demo module is under its own Codeplex repository, but it's sorry, it's not training demo module, but training demo. Is it called? It's Orchard training demo. You see, this is the downside of having or maintaining a few dozen modules. You start to forget about them. But it's a training demo module for Orchard, so naturally, logically, it's called Orchard training demo. .codeplex.com. So Codeplex is, if you happen not to know, just a code repository, project, whatever, collection site. How to call that? Okay, so our training demo module, what we have developed, we started to develop a while ago, is a module whose sole purpose is to teach you Orchard. So it's basically a walkthrough. You have hints all the time. You are led through module development. So it's linear. You are always told where to look, what to do. Everything is explained. Everything is commented. There are plenty of examples. So if you just come here and download the module from under source to get the latest source, there is a lot to see. As the documentation tells us, you just have to open up starthere.txt in the module, and you will be guided from them there. We will go through this. Also because we don't have enough imagination to come up with something different or something new, and also because this is something straightforward. So if you want to practice at home, or you want to find samples how to do something inside Orchard, it's a good starting point to look at the train demo module. But by the way, there is also the Dojo library. We haven't spoken about the Orchard Dojo library before, I think, because it's more developer oriented, and you can't really get information from it as a user, because it's not aimed for that. But as a developer, and now you are becoming a developer, it's a good thing to take a look at it. If you visit Orchard Dojo, it's under resources. And under resources, you can find Dojo library. So that Dojo library is a loosely structured, big collection of Orchard goodies. It has also some Orchard-related links. It has software development guidelines, best practices, everything. Everything that's common and you should probably know about. There is also a frequently asked question. Yeah, probably the examples is something important. The examples is really a list of where to find examples of specific scenarios inside Orchard. So when you develop for Orchard, it's always a good thing to take a look at the source. So this is the point in open source software, that you can learn from the source of the software itself. You can learn from the source of Orchard itself, and it's a good tutor, the source, because it's pretty much up to date, and there are many examples inside Orchard. This list contains some examples. So if you know that you are looking for something but you don't really know how to do it, just check this out. Maybe it's listed here, and you will see a good example of how to do something. So that's about the corresponding documentation and helpers. We care to explain these and show these to you because after this course is done, of course you are on your own, more or less. Of course there's a community and there are others to help you out, but you will have to be able to develop on your own, and it's good to know where the sources of information are. So here again our module, and we have our module.txt file here. This is very important. This module.txt is pretty much the same for modules than our theme.txt was for our theme. Also, it has a name, so we could have a pretty name here, like for the theme we had, not for this theme, sorry, that's not our theme, but in the Dojo Course theme, in the Dojo Course theme we had a pretty name, Dojo Course theme. We could do the same for our module, so instead of this format here, let's have Dojo Course module, pretty name. But the different configuration options in the module.txt are used more than the ones in the theme.txt. So they are not just used for displaying purposes. The name is just for displaying, but the anti-forgery is about cross-site scripting request forgery prevention. So basically, what this configuration here tells Orchard is that if you do a post request through your module and you handle that post request inside your module, Orchard should validate the cross-site request forgery prevention token. If you don't know about cross-site request forgery, no problem. Just search for XSS. It's a forgery technique developed before a few years, so everybody knows about it. Also the Orchard development team. So basically, if you have this enabled here, there is much less of a chance you getting hacked, or your users getting hacked, or your users' data getting stolen with cross-site request forgery. The author is obvious. It's not the Orchard team now, but the Dojo Course team. Website, this is again just displayed here. If you have a website for your module, you could put it here. Well, let's put it orcharddojo.net. Version. And now version is, I think it's not shown anywhere, but it's used when you package up the module. So you could generate NuGet packages from your modules. And we won't take a look at that because it's easy and documented. But basically, you should know about it. So you could create NuGet packages, and once you have the NuGet package from your module, you could go to the Orchard gallery. I think we have spoken about the Orchard gallery, the big repository of open Orchard modules. You could upload that package now to the Orchard gallery, and once it's uploaded to the gallery, you can install it with a few clicks from under the dashboard. So this is what we have seen probably in the first lesson, that from under modules you can install modules and themes from the gallery. So it's here under modules and gallery. So that's what you should know about versioning, because when you generate that package, the version is taken into account, and if you don't increment the version, the package names will be the same for the different versions, and that's of course an issue. By the way, while we are here, let's disable shape tracing because we don't need it for now. Okay, so that's disabling. And back to the module.txt. Orchard version is not used yet. Most possibly it will be used sometime in the future to indicate compatibility. And so the current version is Orchard 1.7, 1.7.1, so let's indicate 1.7. Description is just displayed, and now comes features. That's something interesting. Here we can see, for example, with alias, we have something called here alias and something called here alias UI. Now these two things are two features. So what you really enable here, as indicated from this title, are features, not modules. So this alias here is a feature, and this alias UI here is another feature. By the way, these happen to be in the same module. That also goes to add to the confusion by the same name, alias. So basically what this means that inside the same module you can have multiple features that can be switched on and off independently. We will use that, but just for now keep in mind that these features listing here is necessary for this, because we only have one feature here, the root feature, but we could have more. And so there's this root feature for us. This root or the default feature has always the same name as the module. So Dojo Course.module. We could have a name for the feature itself again. So we could write name here. Let's indent it. The module.txt and the theme.txt has this YAML, I think it is called, format. So it's just formatted with columns and indentations. Description again for just a feature. And one further thing is category. We could have multiple options here, we will discover those later, but category is something important. If you take a look at the features page, you see the categories here. So we have an uncategorized here. This is our module, it doesn't have a category yet. But we have another category, content here. Content publishing is also a category. So we could add a category to our module. Let it be demo. So now if we refresh this page, our module is here under the demo feature, demo category. And here is the feature description that we haven't set. And we could enable the module. Well, let's also enable the module. This won't do anything yet, because our module is just an empty skeleton at the time. But we have it enabled, it supposedly runs, so we can do something. And what we will do is to write a controller. So we have mentioned that that modules inside Orchard follow the MVC paradigm. By the way, Orchard is since Orchard is very extensible, theoretically you could roll out your own engine and your own routing and plug it into Orchard. But what's tried, tested, followed, and works well is the MVC paradigm. So we will write little MVC applications when developing modules. MVC applications, if you happen not to know, have basically three building blocks. These three letters. M is model, and we have folders here pre-generated in our module correspondingly. So M is for model, V is for views, and C is for controllers. So let's not go into the details theoretically, but let's just jump into the development and we will quickly understand what these different pieces are. By the way, MVC inside Orchard is not just about these three components. We commonly also have services, helpers, extensions, and a lot of other stuff. A lot of other components we use, but yeah, controllers are probably very important, so we will start with them. So let's write our first controller, and while we are writing it, we will get to know what is a controller. So let's add a new controller, new class, because controllers are class. So right-click, add new class, or add class, and let's call this controller first controller. Controllers are are conventionally suffixed with the word controller, although this is not necessary. What is necessary, however, to derive from the controller class that's inside the ASP.NET MVC framework. So just derive from controller and pull in the namespace. You could also implement the iController interface directly, but most of the time you just want to derive from controller. And just add a method to this controller. It should be a public method. Let it return a string, and let's call it index. And just return an OK string. Since we have added a file to the project file, don't forget to save the project file too. So this way, Orchard's dynamic compilation will pick the changes up, and we don't have to compile the solution by hand by hitting F6 or whatever. It will be recompiled. So let's go to Orchard, so to our Orchard side. And what we will do now is we will open this controller. And the convention is as following. Let's take the module name, so Dojo Course.module first as the first segment, then dash the controller name, so this is first, and let's add the method name index. So the URL we have here is the root URL. Then dojocourse.module/first/index, and enter, and we have an OK. So what has just happened? Controllers are basically accepting requests in MVC. So you write controller classes to handle incoming requests. This route we have here is convention based. It can be overridden, and you can create pretty routes, but by default this is the pattern you have here. So the pattern is that first you specify the module name, then the controller name, then the action name, because methods in controller classes are called actions. And by the way, since this action is called index, we could omit this last segment and just write first. And it works the same way, because if there is no action selected, MVC will search for the index method. And so this is of course the same as with the index files on web servers. These are controllers, nothing special. We have written our first one, but it doesn't really do much yet. So let's take our another letter from the C into account or into the game, and let's see what the V is again out from MVC. Now we have seen shape templates in our themes. So these are also under views. So basically, shape templates are also views, CS/HTML templates. We will write the same, but now for our controller. So what we want to have here is that our controller doesn't just return an OK, but we will see some HTML, because we want to display something. Now it's quite easy. We have to write a view. We have to write a template. Now ASP.NET MVC and also Orchard is very much convention based. So as we have seen with the shape template overrides, there are specific conventions. You don't have to configure something for it to work, but you have to follow the conventions. In the case of templates, naming conventions, and they will work just with the naming conventions. The same goes for ordinary views that are not shape templates, because what we will write now is an ordinary view that's not a shape template. So let's do that. Yeah, well, actually, it's not a shape template. It's not completely true, but it's not a shape template in the same sense as what we have done in our theme. Now the convention with such views is that under the views folder there should be a subfolder that's called the same as the controller. So it should be called first. And under that folder we could write our views. And there is another convention. By default, the actions can use views that are named in the same way as they are. So we have an index action here. If we create an index view, it will be able to use it without any, well, let's say configuration. So let's go on first and add a new item. Let it be an HTML page, and we call it index.cshtml. Enter. Let's remove everything from here and just write hello. But now that we know about our key strings, we will write hello in a localized way. Because probably somebody will come here and want to have this hello in Chinese or whatever. We are prepared for that. Again, don't forget to save the project file too, because we have added a new file. So hello, we have to modify our action too, because now it returns a string, but it should return a view. So let's not return OK, but let's return a view. And there is a method called view here. So if we just use that, this view method will return a view, and since it's convention based, it will return the view called index. But of course it's not working yet because it returns a view result type, an object of type view result. So we have to modify the string to view result. This view result is the base type for views. So basically if your action returns a view result, you can return anything from inside. This anything will come handy later, because we will see shape results that return view results that wrap a shape. But we could also write file results to return files from controllers. Let's just try it with a simple view. So let's reload the site and see what happens. I'm very exciting, I hope you are too. And we have our hello. Beautiful. Now there's not much different yet. Well, this comes from a view now, but still we have a blank screen with a hello on it. That's no good, and now is the first time we will use Orchard's API from C#, and that will be an attribute called themed. So I'm adding an attribute themed to the controller, and also pull in with control dot the namespace. Now what the themed attribute does is that it builds the theme around the view result. So we have our theme, it's even our Dojo Course theme, but it wasn't used when we opened this page. Now if I reload the site, it will use the theme. So let's see what happens after it's successfully loaded. Yeah, so now our theme is around our hello. If we take a look at the source code, search for hello, you see that here is our string. Nothing is around it that we have done, because we don't have a container for it. So it's directly in the container called zone content. Remember with shape tracing we have seen the content zone and also content shapes. Now this is the content zone in HTML. The moral of the story is that if you return something from a view, the result will be injected into the content zone, but by default is here. And everything else is just built around it. And this is extremely convenient. By the way, just a note on MVC, because what we have here is standard MVC. This has nothing to do with Orchard. it works in a standard ASP.NET MVC application too. You could just take a look at MVC tutorials and you will see the same. This here is now Orchard. So we won't bother with other MVC stuff now, but let's just try a final Orchard stuff. A final note about Orchard. And now Orchard very much uses something called Dependency Injection. I hope you heard about Dependency Injection. It's a modern software development technique. Well, to wrap it short, it's about gathering external dependencies that your class needs from the outside in a way that those dependencies can be later interchanged. Let's take a look at an example and you will understand it in a minute. Dependencies inside Orchard are injected through the constructor. So basically, if you want to use some service from inside Orchard, you inject that as a dependency through the constructor. And there's some magic involved. What we'll use now is the Orchard work context, what we have just seen inside our template before, or rather the work context accessor what we will use. And we will do the following. Let's write a constructor, and as the single parameter of the constructor, let's specify I work context. Oops. Context. Go away. Context accessor, and let's pull in the namespace again. We conveniently shorten work context accessor to WCA. So what happens here is that there is a service inside Orchard called iWork context accessor. This is just an interface. So the good thing in dependency injection is that we only deal with interfaces. There are implementations in the background, but those are wired up externally. We don't couple our classes. We don't couple our controller in this case to a concrete implementation of this interface. We just go into the cloud and request an implementation of this interface. And we will get it because all this dependency injection is wired up in the background inside Orchard. So let's get this. We need a private field to store this reference. So WCA again. By the way, in Orchard it's convention that we prefix our private fields with an underscore. WCA. And let's take a look into that work context accessor. And how this happens is that we request the work context from inside it. So let's save the work context to this variable, and let's call get context on work context accessor. This work context here will be the same as what we have seen in our branding. So here is work context current site name. This is the same work context object. So judging from this, you can see that this work context really is really some kind of a global object that stores global configuration data that's needed for the context of the application. And let's fetch the site data, the site name from this. So site name, is buried inside work context somewhere. So work context dot, and there are many properties: current culture, current site, current theme, current time zone, current user. This current user is about authentication. So there are a lot of things here. Let's just try current site for now. Current site dot, and there are again many properties, but let's just try site name. Okay, And to wrap it up shortly, and so we don't have to pass this site name to our view, we will do such passing to the view many times later. We will take a look at this in the debugger, because using the debugger is something important and we haven't done it yet, but you should know about that as a developer. First, reload the site. Now what happens is that since we have changed this C# code here, Orchard does a dynamic recompilation. The application is compiled. Now that it's compiled, it's advised to attach the debugger to it. You could also attach it before, but it would be slower. So to attach the debugger to the web server that's running now, go under debug, and there is attach to process. And under attach to process, you see under the processes you could select, there is IIS Express. So this is what runs as a server in the background. So let's attach to that, and debugging now starts. By the way, there are Visual Studio extensions that make this attaching easier. So you just have to click attach to IIS Express and it works. These extensions are listed in the Dojo library. So take a look at the Dojo library. It's under the guidelines, and install it for yourself so it's easier. I place a breakpoint in this line so we can inspect what's inside site name. After reloading, we have already hit this breakpoint, and indeed in the site name there is Dojo Course, so that's our site's name. The important thing here is that you should know about how dependency injection, how this constructor-based dependency injection works inside Orchard. Inside Orchard there are many services that are used for many things, for content management, for user management, all kinds of data access, whatever. These are always services, and these are always constructor injected. You always should require in your constructor an interface, and then the surrounding framework will inject an implementation into your class. Then you could just use it. This was for now. Next time we will go on with more complicated services, and in a few occasions we will start developing content types. So thank you for your attention, and see you next time.